Well, good morning, everyone. Today we'll be discussing about the difference between the recruitment and the selection. What is the difference between recruitment and selection? We have 6 differences given here as per the slide you can see. The first difference, let's see the basis of distinction or the basis of difference. The first point is on the basis of their meaning. So what is recruitment? Recruitment is searching prospective employees and stimulating them to apply for the job. And what is selection on the other side? Choosing the candidates having necessary qualification. That I believe everyone is knowing. You are choosing the candidates having necessary qualification. Whereas in recruitment, you are searching the prospective employees and at the same time, you are stimulating them to apply for the job. What is point number 2? Recruitment is a positive process. And point number 2, selection is a negative process. Why is it a positive process? That is the aim. Because it creates a large pool of candidate, and while selection eliminates all the unsuitable candidates. And what's the difference on the basis of their process? Recruitment is a simple process as candidates are not required to cross any hurdles. But in case of selection, it is a complex process because the candidates are required to cross several hurdles and then they are selected, right? What is point number 5? On the basis of number, there is no restriction upon the number of candidates for the recruitment. Any number of people can come up for recruitment. But yes, for selection, we have only limited number of candidates required. No, only limited number of people are selected. Everybody is not selected. Limited number of people are selected. Point number 6, order. Recruitment is done prior to selection. Point number 6, recruitment is done prior to selection. That means it is done before selection. Whereas selection is made after recruitment. Selection is done after recruitment. So all these 6 points which we have done. Point number 1, whatever points we have done. Point number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All these 6 points have to be learnt by heart. Council may ask you at least 5 points have to be learned from here. There is no other option. You have to learn at least 5 points. There is no choice left for you. You have to learn at least 5 points. Without that, it is incomplete. So 5 points have to be learned. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. We are here once again to discuss the steps in the selection procedures. You know what are steps in selection procedure? Before selecting someone, you need to follow some steps, some process, some procedures, and that is to be discussed here. You know what? A well-organized selection procedure should be designed to select the suitable candidates for various jobs. Each step in the selection procedure should help in getting more and more information about the candidate. The more step you clear. There is no ideal selection procedure appropriate for all cases. Generally, we have the following steps, which you can see in the diagram here. We have already given you a chart sort of a thing. The very first is the preliminary interview. The first step is the preliminary interview. The next step is the application blank. On the third step, we have the different types of tests. We have so many types of projective tests, subjective tests. So many tests are there, psychological tests. Then we have the interview and the group discussion. Under the group discussion, we go for the GD. We have the group discussion, group interview. Interviews are there. Then we have different sorts of interviews being taken. Then when we have the next thing as a medical exam, we go for the medical examination of the candidate. And then it is actually the medical examination of the candidate is not done everywhere. It is for some specific job, maybe for overseas and all, they go for the medical examination. Then we see the reference part. And then comes the final approval. After that, we give the final approval. Okay, and then what happened? The placement of the candidate takes place. In the absence of that, the candidate cannot be selected. So the placement of the candidate takes place once he is finally approved. Before that, his placement will not be taking place. So once he is finally approved, then only his placement will be taking place. In the absence of that, in the absence of final approval, his placement is not taking place. So you have to be very careful about it. In any organization, the person have to clarify, have to clear these steps in the procedure of the selection, and then finally he gets the approval, and then he's been placed at the job. Before that, a candidate cannot be placed to any job. He need to first go for the preliminary interview. After going to the preliminary interview, he has to clear the application blank. After application blank, he has to go through the test. After the test, he need to go through the group discussion, through the interview process. Once he goes through the interview process, then only he can go for the medical exam, and medical examination is for the overseas candidate. Then we have, after the medical exam, we have the reference checkup. After the reference checkup, then finally the person is been given his final approval. And after final approvals comes the placement. He has been placed. His placement comes this side. So placement is here. And this side we have the rejection criteria. And here we have the placement criteria. So on the graph, if we see, this is the placement area. This is the rejection area. Have I made myself very clear? Thank you. Well, good morning everyone. Once again, we are here to discuss the new slide here. As we have done in the previous class, the slide showing the different selection procedure, the steps in the selection procedure. So here, one by one, we'll be taking into consideration one by one each step. Like the first step you have seen in the selection procedure was preliminary screening. So today we'll be discussing about the preliminary screening, what this preliminary screening is all about. It is essentially done to check whether the candidate fulfills the minimum qualification or not. You know what? You have to see to it, whether he's fulfilling the minimum qualification or not. Preliminary interview is generally very brief, quite brief. And the main aim is to eliminate the totally unsuitable candidate. The job seekers are received at the reception counter of the company. Here what is happening? The job seeker is coming. He's been received at the reception counter, maybe by the reception or by the appointed person for the purpose. And ultimately, the receptionist or some other official who's appointed for this purpose, who's supposed to take the interview and all, interviews the candidate to determine whether he is worthwhile for the candidate to fulfill up the application blank or not. If he is suitable to fill up the application blank, then he's been given the application blank, or else he's been said no, then and there only. Candidates possessing the minimum qualification and having chances of being selected are being given the permission to fill up the application blank, And what is happening? The preliminary interview is very beneficial, both for the employer as well as for the employee, for the candidate. And it saves the time and the expense of the employer, because what is happening? The candidates are also saved from the trouble of passing through a long procedure. Here only in the preliminary interview you have been selected. In the preliminary interview you have been chosen. No, you are not suitable for this job, so don't apply. Right? You are suitable for the job, sir, so please apply. And then you can go further in the entire screening of the process, or the entire process of selection, the entire selection procedure. Moving on to the next point, we are very assured about this. And then what is happening on the preliminary screening? As I told you, it's very clear, I suppose. Now we are not aware of what is happening with us. We are looking on here and there. You can see the images here, and the image is very clear as to it says that it is training the candidate. Like here only at the very first level, I'm having on preliminary screening, and then I'm removing the person. I'm not having any more person with me. Right, now we move on to the next procedure, and the next procedure is application blank. This is very simple, as the name suggests. It's an application blank. It's actually a form that has a column for name, for the age, for the addresses, for address, education, job experience of the candidate, working experience of the candidate. Variety of application forms are used in practice. Application blank is also an important step in the selection procedure. Actually, it provides a detailed and a permanent record of the candidate. You know what? It's giving you a complete information about the candidate. It reflects about the candidate's suitability, his interest in the job, everything. Application blank also serves as a basis for framing the questions. Like on looking onto the application blank, I can frame the question. I can ask you, okay, you have done this. Okay, how much did you secure in this? What was your marks in this? What was your performance in this? How much did you secure? I mean, this type of question can be put up. Application form should provide all the relevant information. As I told you, name, address, telephone number, email IDs, addresses, everything. Personal information, every detail have to be put up. Your physical characteristic, your height, your weight, your eyesight detail, your family background, your education, all the different categories of education, your academic, your technical, your professional knowledge if you are having, any technical knowledge you are having, your experiences, your job held, whatever experiences you have, how much salary you have drawn earlier, everything, your references are checked, every detail. And sometimes what happens, we have the different miscellaneous, like any extracurricular activities you are going through, or your hobbies, whatever, your sports and games and sports area, or you are a membership of some professional bodies and all. Every detail have to be given in case of application blank. And after application blank, we have the other sort of thing which we will be discussing in the next slide. So ultimately what happened, I don't want my children to be pressurized with so many things. So kindly note all this down, and these are important for formation of answers. So you should know, here in this slide we have discussed two different steps. One is preliminary screening and the second one is application blank. Good morning, students. Today here we are discussing about another selection procedure. Since we have already discussed two different selection procedure, that is preliminary interview and application blank, today we are moving ahead with selection test. As you can see in the figure, selection test has been done. So what is the selection test all about? After the scrutinizing the application, once you scrutinize the application, a list of those candidates is prepared who will be tested and interviewed. You know, first you have to do the scrutiny, and then you are going to shortlist those candidates who have to be tested and interviewed, because you cannot have a test of everyone and you cannot have an interview with everyone. So after scrutinizing the application, after the scrutinization of application, we list some eligible candidate who can be tested and interviewed. Tests have become very popular device nowadays. We are all aware of it, right? Even you have to appear for the test. These tests are based on the assumption that human traits and work behavior can be predicted by sampling. That is important. That is why we have this sampling method. Individual differs in their physical and mental qualities. You know, everyone have got their different mental capacity, mental quality. Various type of tests are used to judge the quality. You know what, we have the different types of tests. Tests are very helpful in measuring a candidate's suitability, whether he's able to do the job or not, whether he's fit for the job or not. For that you need a test. For that a test has been taken. That is why we have your exams. We take your exams as well to find out whether you are suitable for the next class or not. However, tests are not fully reliable. They also involve time and money. Tests are more useful in identifying and eliminating unsuitable candidate. That can be done. Right. Then we have the next thing, which you can see on the slide. Different types of tests are there, but before that we don't have to discuss them right now. Here we'll be discussing in short about what this final interview is all about. But before the final interview, I would like you to once again go back to the selection test and see what are the different types of tests and why do we go for the test? We have, as I told you, we have the subjective test, we have the objective test, and we have the projective test. Then we have the most popular one is a psychological test. You know why we go for the psychological test? Psychological test, we check the behavioral characteristic of a candidate. Like how is he? Is he tolerant? Is he adaptable? Aggressive? What about his emotional balance? How much is he? What about his emotional characteristic? For that reason, we go for the selection test. And now we are slowly moving to our next slide. And that next slide is nothing, but it is telling us what is the next slide all about. It is about selection or the final interview. When I told you selection will be taking place, the final interview will be there, then what happened? This comes in your mind. It involves this selection or the final interview is what? You are face to face. With whom? You are having a face to face conversation between there is a face to face conversation between the employer and the candidate. You are having a face to face conversation with the employer. At that point, the selectors ask you job related and general questions. Okay, the objective of this interview is, this final interview is to cross-check the information obtained through the application blank. You know, you have filled up the application blank. Whatever you have filled up is true or not. For that, we need this final interview. And to give an accurate picture of the job and the company, for that also an entire final interview is taken, so that you come to know about the company and I come to know about you, right? So it's both the way beneficial. This final interview is most widely used step in employee selection. It is, however, very useful, but sometimes it also suffers from lots of drawbacks. People take it like it's a very time consuming and expensive device. Lots of time is wasted and so many things people think about it, but ultimately this is also one of the most popular method. Now, since I told you we have the series of the thing and we are going towards in a series, can we have the next steps? The third step is a group discussion or the GD. As you can see in the figure, how these people are sitting in a conference, like we have a group discussion. In a GD, what happened? The candidate's interviewer cannot judge the interviewer cannot judge your leadership quality in a normal interview actually. So ultimately what happened, in order to judge your leadership quality and the social makeup, that is very important, not only leadership quality, but also your social makeup have to be judged, no? For that reason we have the group discussion. The GD, that is a group discussion. It's a very useful device for judging the leadership quality, leadership ability, and the social trait of a candidate. Because in the absence of that, normally what is happening is in a group discussion, we have 8 to 10 people sitting, 8 to 10 candidates sitting together, and the observer is there who guides the discussion. He records how many times and in what way each member addresses and reacts to other members. So he's a person, he's a silent observer sort of a thing. And he keep observing. The behavior of the member is being judged. Group discussion is widely used. You know what? To screen the candidates. And that is the reason why it is widely used. This is very important. As I told you, many of the candidates are selected through GD. So the person who is an observer, let's come back to him. He records how many times and in what way each member addresses or reacted. Some members may initiate and lead the discussion. Also, he observed that also. Who is a leader among them? Who has that leadership ability? Who has a leadership quality? Who can speak better? Or who is going to lead in the entire group? While others may initiate and lead the discussion, while others may participate very little. So what is there? He's there to observe who is participating little, who is participating more, who is leading. So all these things are taken care through GD. Who is having all the necessary quality to run a organization. The rest of the thing in another slides, we still have 2-3 more steps to be discussed. So we'll have another slide for that. Thank you.